People think that in order to have a satisfying sex life, that they just have to find that one magic technique that's just going to be the answer to it all. But the fact of the matter is that in order to have a lifelong, mutually satisfying sex life requires something different. It requires the right attitude, it takes the right atmosphere, and it also requires the right approach. We're going to be looking at those in this edition of 4 Habits to Transform Your Marriage. I'm Kerry Decker, your host, and our presenter for this session is Kurt Bubna. We'll be right back.
Well, thank you, Kerry. It's an honor to be a part of this great event, 4 Habits to Transform Your Marriage, and I believe in healthy marriage and believe that it happens as people invest in their marriages together in their lives. So thank you for being a part of this, listening to me. My name, as Kerry mentioned, is Kurt Bubna, and I have the honor of talking to you tonight about a topic that I have great passion for. It's called How to Have Hot and Holy Sex. How to have hot and holy sex. And it's an honor because I believe it's one of those topics that a lot of us are uncomfortable with. Some pastors are uncomfortable teaching on. In this fairly informal setting, I'm just going to bring you some thoughts and some things I want you to consider. I want to begin with a very few important things that I want to underline for you. To begin with, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a sex therapist at all. I am a pastor, and I've been married for 44 years to my high school sweetheart. But what we've experienced in our marriage is a lot of healing and a lot of hope. I've read a great deal about sex and about sex in a Christian marriage, an awful lot about that. I've counseled literally hundreds of couples over the years. And I make no apology for dealing with this issue, for talking about it quite openly. I'm never embarrassed to talk about the issue of sex, and our church, my people, know that as well. God created sex, and if the church is to be salt and light in the midst of a very dark and crooked world, in the midst of a broken world where lots of people have been broken over this issue, then we've got to deal with issues like sex, and we've got to teach God's truth. That being said, let me address a couple of other things real quickly. I'm not going to get into a wide variety of sexual problems that happen, ranging from impotence to sexual abuse. That's not my intent. I can't cover all of that. I don't have the time to deal with all the what-abouts or the what-ifs. It's not my focus. Again, it's just not possible. I'm very aware that if you've been sexually abused or even emotionally abused in any way, that this may be a difficult subject for you to listen to. I'm not insensitive to that or uncaring about that. I truly am deeply moved by people who have broken pasts and broken experiences. But I need to address this issue and talk about God's original plan for sex in marriage, because He has a plan. And like I said, God created sex. My prayer for you is healing. God wants to redeem and restore your life, including your sexuality. And so here's my big idea. Here's the thing I want to land on, and we'll unpack this together. A creative God created sex, and in the context of marriage, it is a gift from Him, and He wants you to enjoy that gift to the maximum. A creative God created sex. It was His idea, and it wasn't just for procreation, and I'll address that in a moment as well. It's a gift from Him, and He wants you to enjoy that gift to the maximum. Now, Christians, of all people, and here's my belief, of all people, we ought to be the most informed and have the best sex life on the planet. Because, again, designer sex comes from the designer of this issue and this topic in our lives. We ought to have the very best sex in the world. God created it. And again, within the context of marriage, it should be exhilarating, unbelievably good, and mutually satisfying. I had a conversation some time ago with a man named Todd, who was not a Christian. And when we first spoke, he was quite adamant about his opinion about the church. And one of the issues that he had was the church's take on sex. He believed the church taught sex was evil, that it was something to be avoided, or only for the sake of procreation. I don't know where we got those ideas from. But I asked him if he was open to discussing it and taking a look at what the Bible actually had to say. And he said, well, sure, I'm pretty sure I know what the Christian view is, but if you want to enlighten me, go ahead. Well, I had the honor of correcting some very misguided views, and he actually had some moments with me where it was like, man, I did not know that. I didn't know that's what the Bible said. I didn't know that's what God said. So I walked him through what the Bible actually says, what the Bible doesn't say about sex, and I heard this several times. Man, I had no idea. I had no idea how clear and freeing and healthy the Bible actually is on this topic. So several weeks after that, he showed up at my church, and the long and the short of it is Todd eventually became a Christ follower. And I know it's perhaps an unusual situation, but it's a good example of we live in a culture, in a world, where lots of people have really messed up ideas about this issue, about sex, and even more messed up ideas about what the church believes and teaches on it. You see, I believe that if and when people see and understand how God created sex to be amazing, hot, and holy, and a holy part of our lives, again, within the context of marriage, and I truly believe that's what the Bible teaches, that it can draw them to faith rather than repel them from it. That we can actually use this topic in a way that will help people understand better what God wants for them. So let me give you some things. I want to talk about 3 important keys to mutual sexual fulfillment. And again, I'm going to be biblical here. I'm going to give you some good things to consider. But all of these are important. Any one of them taken outside of the context of everything else is probably not going to be okay. It's not healthy. But let me give you 3 keys that are important to mutual sexual fulfillment. And key number 1, develop the right attitude. Develop the right attitude. I grew up in a church that never talked about sex. And we just never heard about it. And I grew up in a church from the time I was a week old. I've been in church. And that indirectly communicated to me that either God didn't care about sex or that it was evil. And again, that's where a lot of Christians get sideways on this. Because neither one of those things is true. Again, sex was God's idea and his plan from the very beginning. And unfortunately, and it is unfortunate, that too many over the millennia have misunderstood God's intent. Too many of those are religious people who have demonized sex, treating it like it was a necessary evil. In fact, Martin Luther, and I have great respect for Martin Luther and the Christian heritage we have that he handed down to us in the Protestant Reformation, but he once said this, and I quote, "Intercourse is never without sin, but God excuses it by his grace because the estate of marriage is his work." Well, Martin Luther was wrong. It's not just something God excuses. In fact, it's something God blesses. Again, I'm grateful for Martin Luther's incredible historical influence on the church, but he got that one wrong. In earlier generations, women were taught that sex is an obligation, a duty, an unpleasant and dirty task that had to be tolerated but not enjoyed. One woman that I spoke with described her early sex training, and she said her mother disapproved of sex and told her that men needed it, but it would never be any fun for her. Now imagine you are a young woman about to get married. Your mom has a talk with you about your upcoming marriage and tells you, you know, honey, you're just going to have to put up with this. Men need it, and it's never going to be any fun for you. And for the first several years of their marriage, because that's the attitude she took into her marriage, that's the attitude she had, and that's the way she viewed sex. She tolerated it, pretended to respond quickly to get it over with as fast as possible. And after the birth of their first baby, she told her husband that if he wanted sex ever again, it was only going to be the next time they wanted to have another baby. She hated sex. And that ended up drawing them into a situation where they met with me, I talked, and I ended up referring them to a Christian counselor. And that began a journey for them where they began to walk through an understanding, again, of biblical wholeness, biblical sexuality, and it brought wholeness to their marriage. You see, the most powerful sexual organ in your body is your mind. It's your mind. And that's why having the proper attitude toward your spouse and his or her sexual needs is the first step to sexual wholeness and fulfillment. So again, let me be clear. God created sex. I've said it. I'm going to make it very painfully clear for some of us. God created it, and he created us to be sexual beings. It was his idea. And as such, sex can be something good and something very sacred. And by the way, it wasn't that God created sex like an afterthought. It wasn't, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with these? I guess I should figure out a way for them to have babies. Nope, that wasn't it at all. And trust me, when Adam first saw Eve, when God presented Eve to Adam, his first thought wasn't, what am I going to do with her, God? I hope she's a good cook. That wasn't it at all. No way. Adam's first thought was much closer to, good job, God. Wow, this is awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What a good God you are. Wrap her up and give her to me. Better yet, don't wrap her up and just give her to me, God. The very first thing recorded in the Bible that God said to Adam and Eve is found in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27 to 28. Let me read it to you. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it." And God saw all that he made, and it was very good. The very first command. In fact, it's the only one that we humans have consistently obeyed faithfully, by the way, was to go have lots of sex, to be fruitful and increase. And I want you to understand, God made us. It's okay to have sexual urges. It's okay to be sexual. Now, of course, let me make this clear as well. Anything demeaning, anything violent or pornographic in sex is not holy sex. But sex is not dirty. It is not a necessary evil. It is not sinful. Now, sin can be involved. Sex can be sinful if it's done in the wrong way or within a selfish way or done in a harmful way. But done God's way within the boundaries of marriage, it's good. Verse 31, again, God said, God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. All that he made, and that included human bodies with the ability to have sex. Sex within marriage is sacred. I'll say it again. Sex within marriage is sacred. It is a holy activity, and therefore to be accepted and experienced in your marriage without shame or guilt. Now, why am I landing so hard on this? You might have noticed I keep repeating myself, because you've got to understand. Many have misunderstood that this gift of sex. They have not seen it that way. And what you believe about this issue, what you believe about sex, will absolutely affect your emotions and your actions. True success as a hot and holy lover is only possible when we see sex the way God does. And so you've got to have the right attitude. Here's the second key to mutual fulfillment, sexual fulfillment. Number two, you got to create the right atmosphere. So you have the right attitude. Second thing, you've got to create the right atmosphere. Let me explain something that some of you men really need to hear. Guys, listen up. Sex is more than just an event. It's about the correct environment and the right atmosphere. It's about the correct environment and the right atmosphere. You can take a healthy plant, put it in a dark room somewhere, close the door, never give it any water, never give it any light, and no matter how healthy that plant was when you put it in that closet or in that room, in no time at all, it dies. Without the right atmosphere and environment, it dies. The right atmosphere is critical to that plant's survival and thriving, and it's true in sex as well. I was with a very young person, she's probably 21, 20 years of age, and I started talking about with her and her husband about this issue of the right atmosphere. And she kind of rolled her eyes like, "Oh my goodness, I don't want to hear this." And I said, "No, I think you do. It's going to be okay." See, I was very young when I got married to my wife, and I was clueless, absolutely clueless about many things. I didn't have a clue that her needs might be different than mine. Never even thought about that as a young man. I was young and was overloaded with testosterone and absolutely ignorant of the fact that affection, for instance, was an extremely important part of sex, especially for my wife, which I'll talk about more in just a moment. Someone once said when it comes to sex, most men are like microwaves and most women are crockpots. Not crackpots, crockpots. Most men are like microwaves. They are instantly ready to be turned on, ready at the push of a button, ready at a flash to experience whatever they want. Slam, bam, thank you, ma'am. That's most guys. That's the way we're wired. Most women are slower. Now, that's not always the case, and I know this is a generalization, but most women are slower and they take time to warm up. And they want to savor the whole encounter, not just a single quick experience. Again, quite a few years ago, I had a couple come to me for some marriage counseling, and they've been married just for a few years. And the guy didn't waste any time telling me what he thought the problem was. He said, "I'm not getting enough sex." And he didn't understand why she didn't get turned on the way she used to when they were first married. Well, I'd heard this before, and I had some suspicions, so I drilled down on it a bit, and I probed just a bit, and I said, "Let me ask you some questions." And as I got into it with them, it became very apparent that she didn't get turned on now because he wasn't treating her as he did then. A lot of guys, when they're engaged or they're courting, they're dating their spouse, their spouse-to-be, they open the doors for them, they send them love notes, they buy them flowers, and when they were dating, he was that guy. He was always doting over her and giving her lots of attention. And he would call her like 20 times a day and said, "I love you, I miss you, I love you, I miss you." And that environment of care and affection got her crockpot going. Even he admitted that he'd grown lazy and careless with his wife. And I said, no wonder she's not getting turned on like she used to, because you're not treating her like you used to. Guys, most women are responders. If you want to have great sex with your spouse tonight, start preparing her early in the day. In fact, create an environment where it's conducive to that. Dr. Kevin Leman wrote an excellent book entitled Sex Begins in the Kitchen. And when I first saw the title and picked it up, I just laughed because I thought, yep, I know what most guys thought when they read that title. But he didn't mean it begins by rolling around on the kitchen floor. That's not what he meant at all. What he means is that most women tend to be stimulated by romance, by tenderness, by loving acts of service, and by non-sexual touch. Let me say it again, non-sexual touch, meaning it has nothing to do with groping or foreplay. They want affection. They want you to hold their hand. They want you to maybe massage their neck. They want you to hold them. Now, when a man's approach to sex is slam, bam, thank you, man, it should be no surprise that his wife might find sex distasteful and feels like she's being used. Every woman wants to be romanced. I've never met a woman who didn't. Every woman wants to be wooed and wanted and made to feel special. They all do. She wants kindness and affection all day long, from the kitchen to the bedroom. More bluntly put, your wife needs a romantic prelude to sexual intercourse. And the sooner you figure that out, gentlemen, the better. Affection must be the environment of the marriage and sex the event. Say it again. Affection must be the environment of the marriage and sex the event. Guys, you've got to learn to become affection experts. And your wife, by the way, is the best teacher. If you don't know what she wants, what she desires, what she likes when it comes to affection, I promise you, you ask her and she'll tell you. She knows. Let her be your teacher. Humble yourself. Don't get defensive. Well, what? You never told me that before. Or don't be silly. Don't be foolish and put down what she says is a need for her. If it's something that she feels like is legit and a romantic, affectionate act on your part, then you better listen and get good at it. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Well, that's not just who I am. I've talked to guys. Well, I'm just not a very affectionate person. I'm just not that guy by nature. And often that's true. I get it. But here's a bigger truth. Anyone can be taught to become more affectionate. It can be a learned skill. Absolutely can be a learned skill. If you're humble enough to listen, if you're humble enough to learn, if you care enough and love your wife enough, you will learn. Put aside pride and ask your wife for help. You'll blow her mind and say, honey, I want to get good at affection. Help me. What can I do better? Ask her what she needs. Ask her what she likes. Ask her how she wants to be treated. And by the way, ladies, be an equal opportunity offender. Let me remind you that though I encourage your husband to go slow with you and to warm you up as a crock pot, he's not evil for wanting to be a microwave. I'm right now, I'm going to take a little stab at you, ladies. Like I said, I'm an equal opportunity offender right here. I just spoke to the guys. Let me speak to you, women. The guys are not evil. It's not bad. It's not unholy for them to want to have foreplay, to grope you, to want to handle you in ways that are sexual. That's part of the way they're wired. For him, sexual contact is a part of what he needs for arousal. It's part of what he needs to get turned on. You think, well, no, he doesn't really. He just looks at me or thinks about me and he's turned on. Yeah, but a part of that is physical contact for most men. So he's attempting to meet your need of affection, hopefully, and I want you to attempt to meet his need for sexual foreplay. That you'll consider that he has needs as well, and they're legitimate. You know, there's this wonderful and very practical verse found in Philippians 2:4. And here's what Paul wrote. He said, each of you should look not only to your own interest, but also to the interest of others. What a great verse. Let me read it again. Philippians 2, chapter 2, verse 4. Each of you should look not only to your own interest, but also to the interest of others. I love telling couples in premarital counseling, and I remind many of them throughout the years if I get to see them again, that marriage is not a 50-50 relationship. It's not meet me halfway. It's a 100-100 investment. Each of you giving all that you have to the other. Each of you laying your life down for the other. Each of you seeking to meet the needs of the others. Each of you should not only look to your own interest, Paul said, but also to the interest of others. And guess what? Your spouse is included in that other. The man gives his all and puts his wife's needs before his own. The woman gives her all and puts his needs before her needs. And when both are trying to do that, when both are attempting to live that out in a marriage, trust me, that's when it's hot and holy. That's when both people are finding great satisfaction. That being said, let me say it again. Great sex happens when we see beyond the event and create an environment and an atmosphere of loving care, fun, and affection. Great sex happens when we see beyond the event. It's not just something that happens once in a while, but where we create an environment and an atmosphere of loving care. Real quickly, let me give you some practical things that you can do that will help you do this. And let me just throw some out for consideration. And you need to have a conversation about this together. You can plan a regular date night. Be together. Think, well, we don't have money. You can do a lot of, you go for a walk along the river, go for a walk in a park. There's a lot of things you can do that are inexpensive or free. Think, well, we got kids and we can't afford to hire a babysitter. Find another couple just like you and do a co-op. Say, hey, listen, we don't have money for a sitter. You don't have money for a sitter. How about if we watch your kids on Tuesday night and you watch our kids on Thursday night? We did it. I was poor most of my 20s and 30s, the early part of my marriage. And we did that all the time. Plan, and here's the key word, regular. Regular date night. Spend time touching, talking, and just enjoying each other. And by the way, that may mean you need to turn off the idiot box, turn off the television. I know the humor behind Netflix and chill, but a lot of us just need to spend more time looking at each other, talking with each other, eye to eye, face to face contact, and not staring at some TV in our living room. Take walks together. Invest quality time in your relationship. Guys, surprise her with a card, flowers, a small gift, especially if her love language is small gifts, gifts of love. Find simple ways. Again, you don't have to spend a lot of money. Find ways to give her something that says, I thought of you. Ladies, surprise him by wearing something sexy to dinner. Now, assuming you don't have kids at home. but ladies, sometimes just blow his mind and he'll come in the door, maybe from work, and maybe you beat him home from the office and you're there, slip into something that's sexy and greet him as he walks in. Guys, here's another thing. Call her from work and tell her you're thinking about her. And I'm not talking about phone sex, gentlemen. I'm talking about just pick up the phone or text her and say, thinking of you, just wanted you to know I love you and I miss you. Boom. It takes you 5 seconds to do that, but it says a lot to your spouse. Tell her how beautiful she is to you. A lot of women struggle with their body image, and it just is a reality. And she will not be inclined to get naked with you if she doesn't think you think she's beautiful. So she is. God created that woman. And is she perfect? Nope. Are you? Nope. We age, we grow older. Trust me, I've been married 44 years now, and my body's a lot different than it was when I got married back in 1976. We change. It's okay, but we can still say, listen, I find you beautiful inside and out. Guys, open the doors for her. Hold her hand in public. My wife's quite capable of opening her own door. I know she's capable, but chivalry is not dead. It shouldn't be. And it's just another way of saying, I'm serving you. I'm putting your needs before my own. Ladies, tell him he's your joy and your pride. Guys, a lot of men, they get beat up all day long in the office. They go through difficult experience where they work. And they just need, once in a while, somebody to say, you know what, you're my hero. I believe in you. You're my joy. You're my pride. Guys, talk about your feelings once in a while. And when she asks you, how do you feel? Don't go, I don't know. Now, don't blow that off. When a woman connects with you at an emotional soul level, that's very romantic for her. And talk about your emotions and the struggles you're having. Even talk about the struggles you're having with your sex life. Be honest about that. Talk about it. And ultimately, serve one another. And make sure that both of you getting enough rest. Serve each other. And then make sure that rest is important. Sabbath rest is an important part of your life. Fatigue is another negative factor in sexual fulfillment. A lot of people, they're just plain too tired. And I get that. So you've got to find ways to rejuvenate, refuel, and get the rest that you need. Ladies, you might have to coach him for a while. And it's okay. Guys, it's okay. And ladies, don't feel like, oh man, I've told him so many times. No. Some of us are just a little slow in the uptake, and we need you to be patient with us. We need lots of positive reinforcement, and be patient. And go back to 1 Corinthians 13 and see all the qualities of love. One of us, love is patient. So, ladies, don't give up on us. Don't give up on that guy. Give him time. And guys, don't be irritated when your wife says, honey, would you mind doing this for me? She's communicating with you. Listen, she's saying to you, this is something that I need. And men, I want you to work hard at asking your wife questions. Say, honey, tell me about your day. Tell me what happened to you today. Tell me what happened with the kids. Tell me how you're feeling. Those are good things that she wants to share with you. And ladies, if men had to be make a living as mind readers, most of us would starve to death. So don't assume he should know. I hear this all the time. Well, you ought to just know we've been together forever, for heaven's sakes. Don't make those assumptions. Just communicate. And guys, most of us are going to need to discipline our thinking, to reorient our behavior, to no longer make a direct connection between affection and sex. Sometimes you just need to give her affection for affection's sake. Sometimes you just hold her hand, or you give her a back massage and you keep it on her shoulders. You just start there and you stay there. You do something for her. Ladies, in private situations in particular, let him fondle you. Let him kiss you. Let him hold you without making him feel guilty or bad for doing so. Again, this is a 100% give. We're both giving to each other. And guys have a need for foreplay. They have a need for physical contact as well, in a different way than you. Now, some guys love affection as well. But generally, again, generalizations, he needs something, you need something. Find a way to both of you meet those needs. Create an atmosphere of affection and mutual care. Just because the right environment is critical to having hot and holy sex. Create an atmosphere and an environment. Have the right attitude. Shift in the way you think about sex. And if you've got a bad attitude, a poor attitude, get help. See a counselor. Get to the root of that. Find out why it's there. Did you have a bad past experience? Were you sexually abused? Was there something that you saw or experienced or heard as a child? Was it some false belief you have? Change your attitude. Work on that. Ask God to help you work on that. And then create the right atmosphere if you want to have hot and holy sex. Well, there's one last key I want to cover. And it's number 3, if you're taking notes, is practice the right approach. Attitude, atmosphere, approach. Practice the right approach. Now, by the right approach, I mean something better and different than the same old approach. I mean developing better skills, methods, and means that enhance your sexual relationship. Now, relax. I am not going to discuss any sexual techniques here. Don't look for the pause or the off button. It's okay. There may be, it's possible, that there are some techniques that you do, in fact, need to work on. And there are some great Christian books out there that can help you. But way before any specific sexual techniques are talked about, there are some basic changes that you can make in the way you approach sex and your sex life that can and will enhance your sexual experience with your spouse. First, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, listen, freshen up your sex life by being a bit more spontaneous. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I know that some of you are already disorganized and you feel like, you know, your life's completely out of control and you live a gypsy life. Some of you, though, you live way too scheduled a life and way too programmed. And it's you know, if you lost your iPhone or your daytimer, you'd go to an emotional meltdown because your whole life is planned on that thing. But here's a revelation for you. You can have sex anytime and just about anywhere you want, as long as it's wise and legal. Just about anywhere and anytime you want, as long as it's wise and legal. So Tuesdays and Thursdays at, you know, a 10-minute slot between the news and the late night show is not necessarily spontaneous. It's not. And it can become boring and routine. And after a while, 10, 15, 20 years, it's like, oh man, where's the freshness? Well, because you've lost it by getting into a rut. Loosen up a bit. You're going to hear this. Listen, go a little crazy. It's okay. Be spontaneous sometimes. It's all right. Again, legal, wise, absolutely, but it's okay to experiment and have some fun. Here's another approach issue. And yes, you heard it from a pastor right here. Some of you need to be more creative and innovative. Yep, creative and innovative. We have a creative God. And we're created with innovative minds. Now, listen carefully. And please, I don't want to be misquoted on this. You've got to listen carefully. I'm not talking about anything pornographic, dirty, or degrading. Not at all. In our world, creative too often means kinky. It just does. And that's not what I'm saying. That is not what I'm talking about. Everything you do should be mutually satisfying. Everything you do in your marriage, it's especially in this area of sex, must be mutually satisfying. And the only way you're going to know that, by the way, is you've got to ask, you've got to talk. Did you enjoy this? Would you like to try that? And if she says, no, I don't think so, then honor that. If he says, sure, let's give it a go, then honor that. It needs to be mutually satisfying. This is very important. But again, if it's the same old thing in the same old place in the same old way, that can get boring. It just can. And that's not the God we have. He's not a boring God. And sex with your spouse was never meant to be boring. That's not God's plan for you. Our God is a creative God. I've said it, and I'm going to say it again. He created everything from platypuses to elephants. Think about it. Some animals have spots, some have stripes, some have fur, some have scales, some are gooey and slippery skin, and others are just this beautiful creatures. He created people, unique as well. And not one of us is the same. That just blows my mind when you think about it. Not one of us is the same. We are each unique in our own special way. Our God is an awesome God who created you as someone unique and special, who is creative and innovative and fun. And again, we are created in His image. And we have the capacity for creativity too. You do. Now, you might think, well, I'm just not very creative. Maybe not. Nobody's judging you or evaluating you. This is not a test. But I do believe that you can ask God, ask Him to help you be creative and open your heart, have conversations and say, what can I do that would make this more fun? There's a book in the Old Testament called Song of Songs, or Song of Solomon. And it's part of God's Word to us. And if you haven't read it in a while, you might want to go back and read it. But it was so passionate, and in fact so graphic, that young Hebrew boys were not allowed to read it. Not at all. One of the things you'll find in this book as you read it is that they were creative, innovative, and passionate. In fact, listen to Song of Solomon, chapter 7, verse 10 to 13. I, my lovers, the one he desires. Come, my love, let us go out into the fields and spend the night among the wildflowers. Now, she's not talking about taking a nap outdoors. Let us get up early and go out to the vineyards. Let us see whether the vines have budded, whether the blossoms have opened, whether the pomegranates are in flower. She's talking about whether we're ready for sex. And there I will give my love to you. Where is there? It's in the fields, among the wildflowers, in the vineyards, and in the orchards. She's talking about making love outdoors, by the way. And again, use wisdom, be legal. But that's what she's talking about. And that's pretty creative and fun. And again, be smart, be wise, be legal. Don't get busted for sex on a beach and tell somebody, well, Pastor Kurt said it was okay. Not so. But the point here is simple. Mix it up. Change it up. Experiment a bit. Again, as long as it's mutually beneficial, get creative. Let me say it again. As long as it's mutually beneficial, get creative. It's okay. By the way, great sex comes from great communication. And I've mentioned that, I referred to that. But you have to talk. You do not make assumptions. Don't think something without knowing something. Don't walk into a sexual encounter with your spouse and not have an idea, any idea. Now, again, the journey is a lifelong journey. That's the intent. I mentioned my wife and I have 44 years. We just celebrated 44 years of marriage. And we're still learning things about each other. Yep, we are. And we're still trying new creative things. Yep, we are. We're still getting innovative. Yep, we are. And we talk. The only way we can get through that and get there is by having a conversation with each other. Lots of people experience performance anxiety in sex. It's common. You ask any sex therapist or counselor, what's one of the most common complaints or concerns you hear? And you'll hear, well, they're just not sure if they're functioning at a level that meets their spouse's expectations, and they feel like maybe they haven't done enough, and we have performance anxiety. And the answer to this problem, at least part of the problem, starts right here. Learn to share openly without fear. Hello. Learn to share openly. Talk honestly without fear. Now, don't nag, don't berate, don't be mean, don't criticize. Don't get ugly with your spouse. Well, I can't believe you didn't like that. What's wrong with you? Don't go there. But openly, honestly talk. What did you enjoy? What didn't you enjoy? What can I do differently? How can we be better at this? Would you consider this? And as you walk down that road together, over years and years and over decades in marriage, you'll get better at sensing each other's desires and likes, and then you have a conversation. It's okay to talk. In fact, it's good. I know what my wife likes before she tells me, because we've been married a long time. And she knows what I like before she tells me, but we still talk, and we talk a lot. It took us a while to arrive at a place of safety and security, maturity. And so, if you're a newlywed, you got years to go before you feel truly safe and secure to have open, honest conversation. probably years. And that's okay, but the only way to get there is practice. You talk, you practice conversation. When my wife and I talk about our sex life, we like to talk about what was good, what wasn't good, what made a difference, and communication has enhanced our relationship an awful lot, a great deal. I believe that sex in marriage can be good. Healthy marriages have a great sex life. Sex is like fine wine, that it can get better with age. And that's the intent. You are in a journey with your spouse. But again, without the right attitude, without the right atmosphere, without the right approach, you won't get very far or experience all the hot and holy sex that God wants for you in your marriage. Let me tell you one last story and I'm going to pray for you. A couple years ago, I had an older couple come to me in their 50s, so not that old, especially at my age now. But they came to me and they've been married for about, I think, 32 years. 32, 33 years. And I said, well, what's going on? How you doing? What's happening? You know, let's just start. Let's just dig in. Tell me what your point of contention is. Tell me where the stress point is in your marriage. And they both kind of hummed and hawed, and she didn't want to get in. You could tell she's embarrassed. And finally I looked at him. I said, well, you want to try? Want to tell me what's going on? Yeah, I'll tell you what's wrong. So our sex life sucks. There's just nothing good about it anymore. And I don't know what to do, and I'm not sure what. And I suggest going to see a counselor, and she won't do that, and doesn't want to pay the money. So here we are trying to talk to you, because the pastor's free. So I said, well, I can give you some advice and some counsel, and if that doesn't point you in the right direction or get you moving forward, then you will need to take some time and money to invest in your marriage. I tell people, and by the way, I told them this too. People tell me, oh, we don't have the money for counseling. And then I look at them and I go, do you have any idea how expensive divorce is? I've got 2 siblings that are divorced. My parents were divorced. And I'm here to tell you, don't ever, ever, ever tell me, don't ever use that phrase around me, because I'll just get lit up. No, yeah, counseling's expensive, but it's a lot cheaper than a divorce. So yeah, sorry, I got off on a tangent there. So I said to this couple, I said, listen, tell me why you feel like you're struggling here. Why do you think this is an issue? And it was interesting to me. They had been married so long that they had lost the spontaneity, they had lost the creativity, they were bored. Neither one of them felt like there's any spark in their relationship, any spark in their sex life. And he obviously felt like it was something he still needed. She felt like she could live with it or without it. And I took him back to that Philippians 2 passage, and I said, now here's the deal. Marriage is designed by God to be a journey, a growing journey, an experience where you continually, I'll use the Christian theological term, get sanctified. Yep, I'm talking about sex and sanctification in the same sentence. You are in process, becoming the man or the woman, the husband and the wife that God wants you to become. And you have to commit to growth. And I looked them in the eye and I said, are you committed to growing? And I'm going to look you in the eye right now, at least through this camera lens. Are you committed to growth? It may take months, it may take years. It may get worse before it gets better. It may be difficult, it may be embarrassing, it may be challenging. It may cost you money to go see a Christian therapist, a Christian counselor. It may, but are you willing to grow? And if you are, then here's the good news. There's always hope. Our God is a God of redemption, restoration, renewal. It's His specialty. It's what God does better than anything and anybody else in the universe. His specialty is redemption, restoration, and renewal. Do you need redemption? Do you need restoration in your marriage, in your sex life? Do you need renewal? Then that's God's specialty. Go to Him. But you have to be willing to grow. God will do anything and everything possible, but you have to partner with Him to make that a reality in your life. So let me pray for you. Father, thank you that we get to look just even briefly here at what the Word says, to understand that your intent for us is good and holy. And God, I truly do. I believe what I said earlier, that of all people on the planet, we Christians ought to be modeling for a watching world what it looks like to have hot and holy sex. In fact, they ought to look at us and go, man, what's the secret? How do you guys stay together? What is it that works so well for you? They ought to see in us joy and satisfaction and contentment and incredible servants' hearts towards one another in such a way, God, that we just really draw people to you as they see what you've done in us. Lord, I know that there's people watching this right now. Some have been deeply wounded, and they've had to deal with the pain of rejection, or the pain of abuse in this area. Holy Spirit, I ask you to heal them. I ask you to work in their hearts to bring wholeness and healing. But God, in their marriage, I know that nothing is impossible. That when we fix our eyes on you, we set our mind on you, when we determine to cooperate with you and to grow, then all things are possible. And so God, move mountains to make our marriages holy and healthy, and that we would have better sex tomorrow than we did last week, and better sex 10 years from now than we did 10 years ago. That we just keep growing in this area. And I pray it in the precious name of Jesus. Amen. Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. I hope you got blessed and encouraged. I imagine you got a little challenge. I would encourage you now, the next step is go have a conversation. Have a chat with your spouse and discuss some of these things together. God bless you.
Thank you, Kurt, for your insights. I really appreciate that. And if you want to find more good content to help improve and enrich your marriage, then just keep coming back to 4 Habits to Transform Your Marriage. Our goal is to continue to bring you quality content like this. And so I'll see you next time.